Hey guys, David Stewart here. Time for some more music theory. Today we're going to talk about chords. This is the thing most people think about when they're thinking of music theory. They're thinking of chords. How do I use chords? How do I play them? How do I put them together to make a good song? And if you've watched all the other ones in this series, hopefully you will have enough background to understand sort of where the theory of chords come from. It comes from the natural relationship between the pitches within a given key area, within a given scale, which is in turn based off a complex tone of the tonic. So the tonic is the complex tone that generates most of the relationships in any given key area. We're going to look at chords in a major key today and talk about some of the ways that you can use those chords to create what's called functional harmony. Okay, functional harmony is a big important part of music theory. What functional harmony really means is that it's harmony that leads appropriately from one chord or one sound area into the next, either from a consonant area to a dissonant area and back again, or whatever you happen to be doing. And there's a lot of guidelines for how you can accomplish this correctly and with ease. So I want to kind of get into some of those. First of all, you have to be operating within a given key area or scale. So if you look back at my other video that I did on melody, you need to be in a key. So we're going to do this in the key of C like we did with the melody that I did in the last video. And if you haven't watched that, you can go watch that, write some melodies, and come back and see how you can maybe combine some chords with these melodies. And maybe write a good piece in, maybe your first piece in a homophonic texture. Homophony means chords and melody, by the way, as opposed to like polyphony, multiple melodies, and that sort of stuff. So let's draw a treble clef right here, boom, a treble clef, and then let's draw key signature. Oh, we're in the key of C, so no key signature required. We're now going to draw the scale for the key of C, which is just going to start on C and end on C. So we just draw the first note, C, there he is. And then we're going to go all the way up, and we're actually not going to draw the C because it's just a repeat. So let's draw the scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay, there's our notes of our scale. Now, the chords that I'm going to introduce today are what are called triads. And let me go ahead and write that word down. I'm going to write it down over here for you. Triads, okay? A triad is a three-note chord. And it's a three-note chord of a particular variety, because within that three-note chord, you stack it up usually in a really, really particular way. And the way that a three-note chord is stacked up is usually in thirds. And there's a couple ways you can think of this. If you look at it on the staff, it's going to be every other note. So we start with C, we're going to skip D, and we're going to play E. We're going to skip F, and we're going to play G. So we skip D, we skip F, we play C, E, G, every other note. If you're looking at a keyboard, like a piano, you can pretty much create a triad by skipping every other note in any given key area. You're going to create a functional triad. Now, that's not the only chord that exists. There's chordal chords. There's chords that are just really dissonant that don't have this same function within a key system as these nice functional triads do. So that's where I want to start, is with the triads. We can do this for each scale degree. Okay, so each scale degree, we create the same relationship. Now, this original relationship, I know when I did the explanation of complex tones and just intervals and stuff, we started with A because that's what a 110 frequency is really easy to multiply. That's part of the reason, and also because your piano will actually be tuned to some multiple of that 110 most of the time. Mainly it makes the math so much easier to deal with. But within that, if you remember, there was a set of intervals that were A, C sharp, E. That's a major triad. That's the tonic chord in the key of A. And so any key, when you start with that tonic C, you're going to, when you multiply the frequencies up, you're going to get that triad in that tonic position. And so we're going to replicate that relationship with each scale degree, taking into account, of course, the other notes that are in that scale, to basically create a whole harmonic palette that we can draw from. a whole set of chords that we can draw from to create cool vertical effects of tension and release. So the next one up, D, D, F, A, and we can just keep drawing them up like this, all the way up the scale here until we get to B. B is a special kind of chord, and I'll talk about that, okay? So here we are, 7 lovely triads for our major key. Now I'm not dealing with minor keys just yet, but you'll find out when we get to minor keys that there's actually more than 7 chords and kind of more than 7 scale degrees as well. So the minor key is going to be pretty interesting when we get to it, but let's start with the major key so we know what where we're starting with, and we know what the basic level is. For each one of these chords, we have a different what's called quality. The first quality is going to be major. And a major chord has a nice bright quality. That's the quality of that lowest triad in the overtone sequence. So in the key of C, it's those 3 notes, C, E, and G. If you play guitar, you can just play C, E, G like that. If you're playing piano, start on C, every other note, C, E, G. Nice and easy to go like that. So there we go. There's our tonic chord, C major. Now that's not the only type of chord that we have in any major key. If we go up to the next one, D minor, and I take that same thing and I switch it up, D, F, A, all of a sudden we get a little bit different quality here. This is called a minor chord. It's a little bit darker. So here's a minor chord, here's a major chord, and I can actually give you both qualities here in root position, make the E into an E flat, and now you have a C minor, and you can really clearly hear that the C is nice and bright. This is something that film composers will actually use quite a bit, is they'll have a resolution to a major chord, and then they'll introduce that same chord. They'll just have it switch from major to minor, and it automatically introduces a lot of uncertainty into the listener. It affects them in a way that's like, oh, that's darker. Maybe there's some more uncertainty there. And you can see it, you can listen for it in lots of film scores. It's there all over the place. So it's our first quality is major, and our second quality is called minor. And these are not named because minor is less important than major, or major is more important than minor. That's not why they're named that. They're named that because of the quality of their relationships. A major chord has that low relationship. It's in the lowest position possible. A minor chord is a different set of relationships that are higher up the overtone series. And so we hear that as a little bit more dissonant chord because the relationships are a little bit further apart than what we get with a major chord. Now, when we are looking at our chords here in our key, what we want is to provide some notation that's going to tell us something interesting about the quality. What we traditionally do is what's called Roman numerals. Okay, we do a 1 for that one chord, and maybe I'll do it actually in blue so you guys can see. And if you're colorblind, I apologize, but we'll do it in blue. Okay, so there's blue, 1. Okay, and for a minor chord, we make it a little Roman numeral 2. We're numbering these based on what scale degree we're on. So we're on the first scale degree, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Now that tells you what order the chords go in if you're just going up a scale that's put in 1 octave. Doesn't tell you about their specific relationship in terms of closeness to the tonic. That you can get from the overtone series that I talked about in previous videos. You'll find that the 5 chord is actually the closest to the 1 chord and also provides a lot of the tension when we actually put it to use. So the 3 chord is an E, G, B, and if we were to listen to that one, we would hear that it is also minor. We can actually just go up the guitar neck if you want to sort of see how this works. There's a C major, then we have a D minor, an E minor, and the next one is F major, G major, A minor, then we have a special chord that I will describe in a second. Okay, so minor. The E is minor, 1, 2, 3. The F is major. The G is major, so we put a big numeral there. The A is minor. And the last one, the 7 chord, it's minor with this little circle, and that is called a diminished quality chord. Now there's actually one more type of chord that is not found in a regular minor or regular major key, and that is actually the augmented chord. So I'm going to write that down right now, and I'll let you hear that. But we only really get an augmented chord if we're borrowing from the minor or we're in a minor key. That's when we get an augmented chord. It does not occur naturally in a major key. Let's hear all three of those qualities. Major, minor, I have to refinger it to give you diminished. And then we actually can also have augmented. Diminished and augmented, you'll notice, are quite a bit more dissonant than major and minor. And we hear them a lot less, and they provide a lot of the flavor and a lot of the tension for what we can use if we want to really ratchet up a lot of tension. We can use those dissonant chords to really, really good effect. Anyway, here's the order that these 7 chords go in. Now, as you go to other keys that aren't C, if you go to B flat or F sharp major or something like that, and you change the key signature, write that scale out, you populate all the notes with the key signature, and you're going to get all the chords that are in that key. And here's the really cool part about music theory. Once we're using our standard 12-note Western system, is that in any key, and if you're doing this on an equally tuned or on an equally tempered instrument, which is most modern instruments, these relationships will sound the same in every key. If you're using a justly tuned instrument, different keys may sound different. If you're using well tuning, you may end up with some wolf fifths that change the way certain keys sound. They'll have a different color. But with this kind of thing, theoretically, all of the relationships are the same. You have, if you were to do it in B flat, you'd still have the 1, the 4, and the 5 be major. You'd still have the 2, 3, and the 6 be minor, and you'd still have the 7 be diminished. Those relationships are consistent through every scale because the relationship between the pitches in the scale is the same. You have the same pattern of steps in a major scale, whether it's B flat major or it's C major, and that's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's the same pattern for a major scale. And so that produces always the same chords in a major key. Now you can select from these chords to decide what you want to do harmonically, but I mentioned that they are not all equal to one another. They do not, this does not show you the correct relationship between these chords and the tonic. The D, which is the closest, is not, it kind of resolves to C, but not really. What really resolves to C is the G. Yeah, it's G7. Okay. All right, so G7, the 5 to the 1 tends to be what we most use with our chords, and that in turn makes what's called a authentic cadence. And I'm going to do a special video specifically on cadences to help you understand how they work. Cadences are one of the most important things you need to know about functional harmony. This is merely an introduction. Let me address these two real quick, because if you go back in time to those intervals, the way that you make a major chord is you stack a major third and a minor third. So the relationship between these two notes is a major third, and the relationship between those two notes is a minor third. Okay, that's the way that any major chord is. It has a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top, and that's what gives it its sound. So it's two ratios stacked on top of each other, and the outside relationship is what's called a perfect fifth. So these outside notes are a perfect fifth. Now if we do a minor chord, it's the same thing. We have a minor third stacked on top of you have a major third on top, minor third on the bottom. With a major chord, you have minor third on top, major third on the bottom. And you can see this actually really clearly on the guitar, because if I play, say, D major, like this, you can see here's a major third going from the 5th string to the 4th string here. And here's a minor third and a major third. Now to turn that into minor, we just lower the middle note. And now we have a minor third on the bottom and a major third on top, because if you lower the middle note, you're expanding the upper interval and you're shrinking the smaller interval to produce the minor quality. Okay? Now diminished has something different here. This is what's called a perfect fifth. That's that 3-2 ratio. It's the octave fifth. It's the second harmonic. It's a really close relationship. So when we put that in a triad, every triad has a close relationship to itself built into it. And that's part of what's cool about it. But if we look at the 7 is kind of the odd man out, because the 7 has 2 minor thirds stacked on top of each other. And that has an odd sound because the outer note does no longer is a perfect fifth. It becomes what's called a diminished fifth. Diminished, thus we call it a diminished chord. So if we go back here, here's D major. D minor, I lower the middle note. D diminished, I lower the middle note and the upper note to create D diminished. And that's two minor thirds stacked on top of one another to produce the sound of a diminished chord, which is the 7 chord over here. And that one's the odd one out because that diminished fifth is only found between particular overtones really high up in the series. It's very distantly related, and so we don't end up hearing a good strong relationship whenever we hear a tritone. That's called a tritone, by the way, diminished fifth. And we tend to think that that's really tense. We really want that to resolve somewhere, usually up to a fifth. So this one's the odd one out, and you're going to hear a lot of diminished chords, especially as you get into more analysis of music. You're definitely going to see a lot more diminished chords outside of the popular realm, I should say, in classical, Baroque, Romantic era music. You're going to hear that. Augmented is a special one. It occurs in a minor key or borrowing from a minor key if we're working strictly in the tonal system. And an augmented chord is a little bit different in that if we were to make an augmented chord out of, say, I don't know, G, we'd have a G, a B, and a D sharp. And what we get there is a major third stacked on top of a major third, right? Major third, major third. We have what's called an augmented triad, and we can do this really easily on the guitar by stacking up any 3 notes in a little ladder row like this. We have a third, another third, major third, and that outer note is actually what's called an augmented fifth, is on the outer notes, A5, augmented fifth. An augmented fifth means that it's an expanded fifth, and an augmented fifth is actually the same as a minor sixth. So what you really get there is a major third, and then like a minor sixth on top of it, and it kind of splits the octave in a really, really weird way. And an augmented chord is highly dissonant because none of those pitches, each pitch might have a kind of distant relationship to one other pitch in the chord, but all 3 together have a very, very distant relationship. You got to multiply those frequencies a bunch of times before stuff starts lining up. Okay, that's the sound of an augmented chord. Sometimes you hear it in like a dream sequence with like a whole note, or a whole tone scale, right? Not whole note, whole tone scale. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Another long video, I'm sorry, but it takes time to get all these concepts across. Chords, triads are what we're looking at. Those are 3-note chords, hence they're called triads. Every major key has 7 of them. The order is always major, minor, minor, and major, major, minor, diminished. In every single key, you can find that out. And you can do this with any key by populating your key signature across all the chords. And we're going to do that in future videos. But I like to start with C because everything's really easy to see in C. It's all the white keys on a piano. It's a great place to start. You have 4 different quality chords: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my websites down below. Buy the books if you want to support me, and let me know what you want to see and what you want to hear in the future. And don't forget to share this video. I keep getting people saying like, "Man, you're so undersubbed." It's like, you got to share the videos, man. If you want lots of content and lots of attention for the channel, which I do appreciate and I love all the feedback, then people need to see the value in it. So if somebody is looking for some information on this kind of stuff, send them my way. This is the same way I would teach a university student how to understand chords at the beginning level of what they're doing with music theory, like first semester music theory. And I guess one of the goals of this series will be to provide all the information you would need for, like, who knows, 6 years worth of music theory. I've done a lot of music theory in my life. I really, really enjoy talking about it, as you can tell. I'll see you guys next time.